Welcome back to the Maybe Yes Sir podcast. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably play golf. And if you play golf, I'm sure you want to get better. Well, we're fortunate today to have a guest that's going to help you do just that. He's one of the young rising stars in golf instruction. He's created an incredible brand and business, and he joins us today from Queensland, Australia. Ryan Mouque, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Ryan, we're in the middle of winter here in Canada, so we're battling it here pretty hard. Part of wanting you on the podcast was to help the listeners out with what to do in the winter to get better. So I think they're really going to enjoy this podcast and learn a lot from you. Ryan's going to provide us with some tips on how to get better during the winter. He'll give you a plan to make your practice time more productive. And I'm really looking forward to a driver tip that you're going to share that I've used for the last few years. That's really helped me a lot. And I mean, who doesn't want to hit their driver better? So I think once Ryan digs into that tip, that's going to help a lot of players over the winter and when they get on the course in the springtime. He's also going to share some stories of the time he spent with Butch Harmon, Cam Smith, and Ripper GC as well. But first, Ryan, I'm interested. How did you get started in golf instruction?
Yeah, I think my story kind of starts with I played rugby league as a kid growing up. So rugby league, it's similar to rugby, but it's kind of like the Australian version of it. Um, I got to pretty much as high as I could as a junior, and I've always played golf as a kid. My granddad always took me to to golf courses and things like that, and I would play and I'd enjoy it. And when I turned, God, I'd have to think it was about 18, I
Yeah.
just got completely over rugby league. Now that I'm a coach, I can obviously see that that was probably a little bit of like early specialization when it came to the sport of rugby league. So how I knew I needed to transition was because I absolutely wanted to get in my car and go to the golf course, basically after school and everything like that. So I tried to play as we all try, and I just wasn't quite good enough. Like the level of golf that you need to play golf for a living is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I knew I wasn't quite there. So I thought I wanted to work in the golf industry. So how can I best do that? And that's kind of when I turned to coaching.
Okay.
I thought let me try and do my traineeship, and I realized pretty quickly that I wanted to coach for a living for sure.
Yeah. So at what point did you kind of pick up the clubs? You said maybe 15 or 16 years old. Would that be
No,
right?
I picked up a set of clubs before I could walk.
Okay.
I've always swung a club.
Yeah.
Golf was always my second sport. I'd be in the backyard, chopping away with a plastic club, and I'd always have a club in my hand. I've got photos and videos of me when I was a little kid in nappies trying to swing a club, and
Yeah.
so I've always been pretty good at the sport. It was just never my number one sport.
Right. Okay. Um, you have a tremendous brand and following online. Was there a point where you noticed that it took off, or was there like a viral video that helped you?
No, so where it started, and look, I still don't think that I've accomplished or created anywhere near the brand and business that I want yet. So there's still way more for me to go. But it all happened when I coached in person for 6 years,
Okay.
and I did my junior classes, my ladies classes, clinics and member coaching and all that kind of stuff. And I've got a tour player over here in Australia who wanted to go and try pre-qualify for some tour events over in the US. And he wanted to do that at a time where I was kind of fed up with what I was doing.
Yeah.
I could sense that I was not enjoying my coaching as much as I used to. And I think it was just purely the type of coaching I was doing. And I felt quite restricted in the venue that I was at. And I wanted to do more.
Okay.
Um, and at that time, he wanted to go over to the States. And I said, look, I'll quit my role and I'll come over with you. And when I decided to do that, I've always wanted, this was just after COVID had kind of let us all out. And I've always wanted to go and shadow the best in the world. I've always
Right.
wanted to know what makes them such good coaches. And so I did that. So we went over to the States for 3 months. He pre-qualified for events or attempted to. I caddied for him. I coached him.
Okay.
And then our off weeks, I went and visited, Dana Dahlquist, Jeff Smith, Preston Combs, Chris Como. I got to hang out with Bryson, James Seekman. So I was able to shadow and watch the who's of golf instruction. And, that was a crazy 3 months, living out of a suitcase for 3 months, spending
Yeah.
just so much money in the States. And I came back and I was like, all right, I'm ready to go again, right? I had all this enthusiasm, and I came back and I just couldn't get a role here in Australia. I couldn't get a coaching role. There were a few places nearby, some golf clubs that, I asked, and they said, no, we've got no coaching spots. And one place did allow me in, but they said I had to charge the same as what everyone else was charging. And I mean, I had just spent a ton of time in the States watching these great golf coaches, and I'd already been coaching for 6 years prior to that.
Yeah.
And basically, I had to charge the same as a first-year trainee who knew absolutely nothing. And I just kind of backed myself, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I feel like I'm worth a bit more than that. I'm not going to degrade myself. So I just went, you know what am I going to do? Because I still want to coach. And that's when I reached out to Baden from Skillist, and I said, "Look, mate, I want a few students online, just until I can find an in-person venue." And that was the moment. That was the moment. And in that time, I kind of said to myself, "I'm just going to post a video online every day. I'm just going to see what happens, and in 12 months, let's just see where I'm at."
Yeah.
And that 12 months kind of generated just massive interest. I was able to fill up my online diary within like 2 months, which was
Really?
just
Wow.
crazy. And then it prompted me, because of all of that, it prompted me to go and film all the videos that are now inside my academy. So that 12 months was quite wild in regards to, I had left a job, I literally made, and I say this to everyone, I made no money, $0 for 8 months.
Yeah.
And, I quit a pretty decent job I was doing pretty well at, and I just kind of backed myself from there, I guess. And yeah, now I'm sitting here talking to you. So,
How many lessons did you do last year, if you were to guess?
I've been coaching online since 2022. So about September 2022. It's now start of the new year in 2025, and I've done just under 9,000 lessons online, I think. So
Wow.
you could say 4,000, maybe 4,500
Yeah.
online lessons in the last kind of 12 months, I would
Right.
say.
And you're keeping up with the content as well. Like you said, your goal at the beginning was like one video a day, and you still turn out a lot of content and a lot of really useful content as well. In fact, one of the guys that I do the podcast with, he just started golf a year ago, and he really credits you for a lot of the content and helping him. He's kind of like you, where he played American football, and he got to a point where he needed to do something where, in our early 40s, and he wanted to pick up the sport and start playing. And he did. And he's got his handicap down to a 10 handicap in 1 year. And he said a lot of it is because of the stuff that he sees from you online. So you got him this far. I think we're going to have to connect the two of you at some point and get some formal instruction going, which you'd love. He'd be the ideal student for you.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, yeah, you can reach a certain point with just watching content online.
Yeah.
There will come a time where you'll plateau, and you
Right.
will need the eyes of a coach to say, hey, that piece there is what you're missing. We need to
Yeah.
really work on that. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Simulator golf here in Canada has just exploded. I live in a city of about approximately 1 million people, and no joke, there's more simulator facilities than Starbucks coffee shops. So a lot of people spend time in the sims this winter. What should we be looking for? What are some like key things that you could do in a simulator? I'm guilty of it. I go in there and I start hitting 7 irons, and I see it carrying X yardage, 178, and then I want to hit the next one 179, and then I want to hit the next one 180. You know where I'm getting at? What should we be doing in a sim to actually make our practice time a little more productive?
Yeah, well, I think simulator golf's blowing up everywhere. To be honest, I think it's an easy way to, even here in Australia, like, we're I'm sitting in the office now, and I've got the aircon going, right? Because it's really hot outside. It's
Yeah.
summer here, so completely different to you guys who've got it maybe a heater on. But even in this kind of temperature, guys don't like going outside and getting smashed with the sun and sweating all over the place. They jump inside and they can do a 30, 40 minute simulator session. And so I think the simulator golf is blowing up everywhere. But in regards to practice, look, there's different types of practice that you'll want to kind of go through. There's your block practice, which let's just make block practice simple and say it's your technical work. Um, then you've got like your random practice, which can be changing targets, changing distances, changing shot shape,
Right.
trajectories, all that kind of stuff. And then you've got like your competitive practice, which is maybe playing a round of golf on the simulator. There are other ways to make things a bit more competitive with yourself, but
Hmm.
simulator practice, you can definitely, because you're hitting into a screen, um, it can become a little bit like, a little bit boring for some. So you do have to make sure that your practice is worthwhile. So I think, the first thing I would say is have some structure to what you're trying to work on. Like, and if that means hiring a coach to work on, some technical things, then that's great. It's quite funny. I built out a course, a video course about how to practice inside.
Okay.
It's what I call my ultimate guide to indoor practice, because I kind of knew that most of my students are American, or at least that side of the world, and I knew that you guys have summer winter, right?
Okay.
Whereas here in Australia we just have pretty much summer. I mean, it's even in winter it's perfect weather.
Yeah.
So in that program that I've done, it's yeah, there's a ton of block practice stuff and how to make swing changes. Then there's a ton of hitting your wedges, hitting your irons, hitting your driver, and then ultimately finishing off with some competitive games. But like the simulators that you hit into, that most of the software you're hitting with, right, where it's TrackMan or Quad or Full Swing or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever company it is, they typically have games and stuff for you to play. And those games are actually, not only are they fun, but they're also educational, right? Like
Right.
different distances, different targets, different score for how close you can hit it. So, man, there's actually more you can do in a simulator than you can on the range. I think. I think the simulator is really really good for that kind of stuff.
Right. For sure. And the problem with some of the ranges around here, like the public ranges, is the golf balls are 25 years old or 30 years old. So you're picking through a bucket of balls to try to find 10 that you're going to hit with your driver to figure out the trajectory and whatnot. So yeah, it's a great point. I mean, you could do a lot in a sim, obviously. What can we do? What can we do at home? Let's say in our basement or in our living room. Um, let's look at putting first. What are some key drills for putting to kind of hone in on our putting over the winter?
Well, when you're practicing inside with putting, you don't have access to a green, right? So we take green reading out of it, right?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of, I mean, you have to do that outside, or if you've got kind of like a stage platform where your green can tilt. Um, so that then leaves start line. So making sure that your golf ball is starting on line, and you can use, things like a putting mirror,
Yeah.
putting a gate in front of that putting mirror so that your golf ball can roll through it. And I would say this, right? If you can't start the ball online, again, golf is such a technical sport. You should, honestly, you should go and see a coach and say, how come I can't do this drill? Right? Find
Yeah.
out why you can't do it, then work on doing it. Right?
Right.
Don't just keep hitting the right hand side of the gate and going, oh, maybe I just have to close the face. Like, yeah, sure, that's probably a bit of a quick fix to sort it out, but the root cause of the problem is probably not that.
Yeah.
So get your stroke and your posture and your setup sorted. Then do some mirror work, do some gate work, and then I would really hone into speed control. And although you might not have a lot of room for speed control, you can actually work on understanding speed control.
Okay.
And that would be, back swing length and through swing length. That would also be tempo and speed that your putter's moving.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're hitting that putt way too hard, it could be because you've got a short backswing and a really long follow through. So you've accelerated through that putt.
Right.
So what you want to try and do is you want to try and even out the backswing and the downswing. And we'll talk about what I maybe learned from Cam, but that's one of the big things that that Cam does is he basically hits his putts with his backswing.
Right.
Maybe we'll talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that when we
Let's
talk
save
about
that
Cam.
one because Cam's a favorite of mine, and I
Yep.
think very interested in the time you spent with him for sure. So we'll get to that in a bit. What about some chipping drills that we could do at home? If somebody has a mat and they want to practice chipping technique or contact, what can they do?
Yeah. So again, at home you are restricted, but that doesn't stop you from working on low point control. So basically, where are you striking the ground? If you've got a little bit of space, you could grab some like foam balls,
Yeah.
and you could make up a little bit of like a ladder drill, but do it in height, right? So you're working on. Yeah, let's just say you had let's just say you hung a sheet, right, in the garage or whatever, and you drew a line on the sheet, right? There's my
Yeah.
low shot, there's my medium, there's my high shot, there's my super high shot. Maybe you try hit the roof, but you can definitely kind of maneuver your ball position around. You can kind of hit the ball with more or less shaft lean. You can add loft. Um, I think a lot of indoor practice is less about perfecting a perfect little draw and more about trying to understand what you are doing with the club, with your body, with strike, so that the flight that you want can all be kind of dictated through that.
Right.
Because we do need to understand this, right? That there is no substitute for outside, right?
Yep.
There's no substitute for going out on grass and seeing the ball fly. But I also say with people making swing changes, so many people let the ball get in the way of their change, right? So when they're first starting to try and make a little bit of a swing change, they let the ball get in the way of their mind.
Hmm.
So if you're inside and you're using foam balls and you're hitting into a net or whatever, the ball flight's not there for you to look at unless you've got a simulator. But
Right.
if that's the case, worry about your movements so that you can actually perfect the movements you're trying to make, which will then ultimately affect the ball flight you want to hit.
Yep. Makes sense. Um, e- Everyone wants to hit their driver better. And I'm sure everybody from time to time has struggled hitting driver. Um, One driver tip that I really like from you is the driver tip of teeing it lower, feeling a little more centered over the ball, and kind of exiting left. It's something that's really kind of saved me over the last few years, and it's been a go-to, like you described. So maybe talk about that driver tip a little bit, please.
Yeah, so obviously this is a different shot than what you'll see on most, I guess, social media posts where it's, put the ball forward, tilt your body back, hit up on it, less spin, higher launch. What I'm trying to say here is, and this just kind of stems from my own game and my own flaws in my swing. I kind of get my left arm a little bit flat across my chest, and then I kind of side bend a lot. So I slide my lower body forward and I tilt my upper body back. So it gets my club stuck underneath me and I kind of flip it, right?
Yep.
Now that's great for a ball that's teed up nice and high. But when I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say nervous on a tee block, I don't really get nervous, but when there's a shot where I'm like, oh, like I can feel my miss pattern coming in here, right? There's water right or there's out of bounds right, and I suffer from a block. I basically tee my golf ball down and I aim a bit more left and I just try and stay kind of similar to how I'd hit a 5 iron. I'd keep my chest a little bit more over the golf ball when I'm swinging instead of the driver being really far behind it.
Yep.
And I'll just kind of swing down and left. Now, when I swing down and left with a driver, what will happen is the ball will come out a little bit lower, and I'm trying to just hit a little cut. So I'm trying to get the club back out in front of me, and I'm just trying to hit a little dinky cut down the fairway. Now, it probably goes 20 or 30 yards shorter than maybe a normal tee shot, depending on
Yeah.
the rollout. But it's honestly, it's one of my safest shots. it's something where if I've got a super tight hole, I'll play that shot more than I'll play any other shot.
Right.
And golfers always say, "Oh, I'll just go to a 3-iron." It's like, no, I don't want to lose the yardage, right? I don't want to go from hitting at 300, for example, right,
Yeah.
to hitting at 210. I want to
Sure.
still go from hitting at 300 to hitting at 280.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the things I would say about that is you can still get distance from the shot by using the ground versus the air. So what I
Hmm.
mean by that is instead of flying it all the way or carrying it all the way, you're actually using the ground for the ball to land and then kind of run on. Now,
Right.
obviously, that's going to be course dependent and environment dependent, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's a shot I really like to play when I'm feeling a little bit like oh, this is a tough tee shot.
Right. How do you get better as a coach? You said you spent some time in the U.S., spending a lot of time with some instructors here, obviously tremendous amount of good instructors in Australia as well. How do you get better, day to day, week to week as a coach?
Yeah, so I mean, we're thankful now that social media exists. I'll take a little bit of time sometimes, just as we all do, honestly, to scroll the internet.
Yeah.
I'll just have a lazy 15 minutes and scroll, and I'll come across an article or a video from a coach that I follow, and I'll listen to it and I'll go, that's a good drill. I've never thought about the drill that way. So you can use social media for sure. When I first started coaching, I tried to get as many certifications as I could. I was kind of addicted to it actually. I look back on it now and I go, was that probably the right thing to do? But I just wanted as much knowledge as I could. I honestly just tried to. I wanted someone. Sorry, I'll rephrase that. I didn't want someone to come onto my lesson tee with something that they're suffering from and not know how to fix it. I just wanted I wanted to be able to help everyone, and so I did my TPI. I did Flat Stick Academy, which is putting.
Yeah.
James Ridyard's Wedge Matrix. I did everything. I tried to do as much as I could, just so I could gain as much knowledge as I could. And then obviously the opportunity came where, as I spoke about at the start, where I could go over to the States and shadow all these coaches. And I sat in for 1 or 2 days with each coach and learned a lot. And look, some of it was not actually learning anything. I actually walked away from a couple of them going, you know what, I already do that,
Yeah.
which was cool in itself, right? Because
Sure.
it means that I've got that information and it's just a matter of applying it. And yeah, my recent trip to the States only a couple of months ago, I did the same thing. I went and saw a few coaches and shadowed Butch and things like that. So yeah, look, I do this thing 24/7. Like
Yeah.
I just commit myself so much to golf instruction and yeah, you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a never ending journey. I've been at this now almost, I think, a decade. I don't know
Right.
how long I've been coaching for, but since 2015. Yeah, so pretty much a decade. And um, just each day that goes by, you just try and learn something new. And I mean, whatever I know now will probably be trumped in another 10 years' time. And I'll look
Yeah.
back and go, I want to refund everyone that works with me. You know what I mean? Like, can't
Yeah.
believe I thought that, or whatever it might be.
So your time with Butch Harmon was just a few months ago. Was that right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I went over. I have a feeling it was August, September. Might have been
Okay.
September, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Any like key takeaway or like anything that he said or you know things that you thought, well, I've never heard it that way, or I've never heard it communicated like that. Key takeaways from Butch at all?
Man, Butch was really simple. You hear about Butch being, doesn't use technology and things like that. Trust, he's got a track, man. He knows all that stuff. Um,
This is in
but
Las Vegas.
yeah, this was in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Yep. So he obviously is his school of golf there, and man, I'll tell you what, he just knew how to coach people. He
Hmm.
knew how to coach people. Um, yeah, he just knew how to coach people really, really well. He knew how to adapt to their personalities. But any drill that he gave, and granted, this was at a golf school, so they're coming in most of them to say, I want to be coached by Butch Harmon.
Right.
Obviously, they're there to improve. I don't know how many were essential on improving. I think they wanted to just gamble, eat good food, and go and see Butch Harmon. But honestly, when he was giving them drills, they were simple drills. Things like putting something in your way. If you're coming way over the top of the golf ball, he would put something in the way of that golfer so they couldn't come over the top of the golf ball. Something like a box, like a club box, for example, that your golf clubs come in. He'd put that on the outside of the golf ball and say, "Hey, swing the club." And I mean,
Yeah.
if you come over the top, you smash the box. But no one ever did. They were so aware that, hey, there's something in my way here. Let me swing from the inside. And a couple of times there, he'd have someone hit a shot once or twice just straight after Butch kind of saying, "Hey, do this," and they'd hit a nice little draw. And I remember one guy saying, "I've never hit a draw in my life." I think he said, "I've been playing for 17 years and I've never hit a draw." Number one, what are you doing in 17 years? Number one, it doesn't take Butch Harmon to work that out. But number two, it can be that simple.
Right.
It can be that simple. So yeah, Butch was great. His stories were great. I can't say some of the stories I heard and
Yeah.
some of the lines he used, but no, he was great. And you know, he knew that he had gotten great results from his tour players. That he had that kind of, I'd say, like an aura about him that, I consider him one of our greatest coaches, in our sport, if not the greatest. But he had all the major flags on his wall,
Awesome. Yeah.
all the Tigers major wins, and
Yeah. He's
yeah,
a
it was
legend.
quite good. Yeah.
Yeah. How about your time with Cam Smith and Ripper GC? How did that come to be? And just, talk about that a little bit, about the day or two that you spent with them.
Yes, I spent a week with them actually.
Okay.
I spent a full week. So how that came about was, again, just super random. I was in the States at the time. I was hanging out in LA with Dana Dahlquist, and I had a couple of students in Chicago, and I I know Cam's coach quite well, Grant Field, and he only lives 2 hours from me. So every now and again I'll go and shadow him and take some lessons from him, and text and things like that. And I just messaged Grant and I was like, "Hey, by any chance, are you coming over for the next two live events?" Right? Because there was the individual championship, which was
Yeah.
in Chicago, and then they had the team championship in Dallas, which I also went to. But the Chicago one, he said, "Yeah, I'm going to be there for Chicago, but I won't be there for Dallas." And I was like, "Yeah, can I come and shadow you for the week?" And he's like, "Let me check with Cam and the boys," and got a text pretty much straight after and said, "Yeah, mate, we're all good. I'll get you a guest pass and a player guest pass, and off we go." So yeah, I was able to literally be as inside the ropes as you can get for an event with, especially with a player like Cam, and I got to walk practice rounds with them, walk down the fairways talking and asking questions. I've got a ton of video on my phone
Yeah,
of obviously, arguably one of the best short games on the planet,
for sure.
best putting
Yeah.
strokes on the planet. So, yeah, that was awesome. So I spent a full week with them, and yeah, it was good.
Let's talk about Cam Smith's putting field then. He said that he hits his putts with his backswing. Like, what does he mean by that, and how do you communicate that to your students?
So if you think of so Cam's saying he hits his putts with his backswing. Basically, what he's saying is the distance he's trying to hit the golf ball comes from a bigger backswing, right? So a lot of golfers, let's say you've got a 20-foot putt. A lot of golfers will have they'll have a backswing length, for example, that should hit the ball 10 foot. That's their backswing length. So for the ball to go 20 foot, they have to accelerate a little bit more to get that ball to go 20 foot. Well, Cam will have a backswing where you could almost hit it 25 feet,
Okay.
and then he'll what we call like cruise into the golf ball. So there's not a lot of acceleration in Cam's putting stroke. In fact, if you look at it, you'd almost say that there's some deceleration in his stroke. Whereas a
Yeah.
lot of amateurs are short back, long through.
Right.
Cam is long back and short through. So yeah, but basically through the impact zone, he's basically putting his putter on cruise control.
Okay. Yeah. And that's consistent for all the putts that he, like a
Absolutely.
5-footer up to a 30-footer.
Yep.
Yeah.
If he wants to hit the ball further, he will lengthen out his backswing. He won't. He won't accelerate the putter. Now, don't mistake that for speed of putter. So
Right.
the speed. So the other way I like to say this to people is if you were to jump on, go to a child's playground and jump on a swing, right? You sit
Yeah.
on a swing. When you first try to gain some momentum on that swing, you start off quite small back, small through, right?
Right.
And your speed isn't that fast. Okay, it's not like you're going at 100 miles an hour. Now, the further you go back, the more speed you're applying on the way down, and then you kind of go into cruise control on the way through,
Right.
right? The only time you can accelerate on a swing is if someone is behind pushing you,
Yeah.
right? So think about Cam's putting stroke as you're on a swing. When you go up, the putter's going down, and then just as you reach the bottom, you're in cruise control and kind of like gravity's taking care of the rest.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes sense and kind of provides a bit of a picture for people. But yeah.
For sure. And I think you posted a video that people could find as well on that, right? I believe.
I've done a whole thread on my time with Cam. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah, it's up to almost 2 million views, I
Yeah.
think. So
Okay.
it's a pretty decent one to learn
Yeah.
from basically how the best players in the world prep for an event. And yeah, Cam's putting stroke is in there, and yeah.
Awesome. Ryan, that's all I had for you today. For listeners, if they want to get a hold of you, what's the easiest way to contact you for some online lessons?
Yeah, look, just visit my website. If you just type in my name, Ryan Mouque, and pop golf on the end of it if you want, I'll come up in Google somewhere there. And yeah, I mean, if I can do single lessons. We can do unlimited coaching. I've also got an academy now as well, which I built, which is I think up to about 400 videos now.
Wow.
When I say videos, they're all lessons and drills that I teach every day,
Yeah.
right? It's nothing new that I teach. But every time I give a student a lesson, that video is likely in my academy.
Okay.
So you can access pretty much, everything that I'd teach and kind of, you know, yeah, everything I know essentially about the game of golf in that academy. You can get a swing analysis in there as well. You can talk to me daily if you want. So, yeah, it's a real low cost option as well. So, yeah, there's a few options. I've got courses available as well. So, there's plenty on the website to kind of look through and to suit your needs.
Yeah. Pretty much anything for everyone, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's what I tried to build. And like I said, when I stopped that in person role a couple of years ago, I realized, like, I'm not hitting a global audience at all. I'm going to the golf club every day, and the same members know who I am, and yeah, I'm glad everything happened the way it happened, and
Yeah.
I'm glad those who told me no, and like I said, here we are, and kind of made the best of what we had, and yeah, I wouldn't want it any other way.
Appreciate your time, Ryan. You're obviously a busy guy. I'm sure you got some lessons you need to
Hitting
get
coach
into right
today,
away. Yeah, for
a
sure.
bunch this morning, and yeah,
Yeah,
hopped on the call, and we'll do a bunch this afternoon. So
that's great. Yeah, again, appreciate your time. Thanks for hopping on with us. I'm sure the listeners learned a lot from you today. And like I said, go contact Ryan for some online lessons and follow him online as well. Great content, high value content as well. So appreciate your time, Ryan.
perfect. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
Thank you.